Hey you! Yes, you. Are you Mr. Gay? Today's video is brought to you by the LGBT Plus Party t-shirt. Do you fall anywhere on the LGBT Plus spectrum? Or don't have an irrational hatred towards those who do? Well, according to some, we're all going to hell. So I hope you're looking forward to the great party. Send in your RSVP today by getting the LGBT Plus Party t-shirt. Only at redbubble.com/people/callmecrashy. Okay, enjoy the video. Bye.
God, we're 22 pages into the script and the stealth game is actually throwing stealth at us. We haven't had to sneak yet, so the devs made sure to set the mood.
Miss Cyrus, there are guards all over the sector. Whatever you do, don't get caught. We'll meet up a little further along.
We crawl through an air duct and suspenseful music kicks in. We can only crouch walk here, so our brain quickly connects this particular song with the need to keep a low profile. Very clever. If that wasn't enough, we meet Double H, who warns us not to get caught. We saw Paige getting flattened by soldiers earlier, so we probably want to avoid that fate. We can get some optional dialogue telling us to stay low and to take it slow. If you're unfamiliar with stealth games, you might not expect enemies to react to sound, so that little line is an extra bit of help for new players. We sneak past a total of 4 guards that have no way of spotting us. We can't make any noise here, so this is a safe place to get accustomed to stealthy movement without the need for a separate tutorial. Here, we get another chance to take a photo of the X-rays, as well as our first stealth encounter with enemies in the same room. This one is, of course, very simple. The guards don't move and don't turn. It's more of a way to show you how close you can get to them without alerting them. The second encounter is slightly more challenging. You'll have to crouch behind cover as one of the guards is patrolling. The cover casts a very exaggerated shadow to let you know that you'll be hidden behind it. Up next, we get a nod to Metal Gear Solid 2 as we spot the shadow of a guard around a corner. We approach it slowly and learn another fact about the guards. Their field of view is very narrow, so they won't be able to see you at most angles. This is reflected in their character design as their visor too is very narrow. Around the corner we see Double H, who is well animated and well voice acted.
Miss Cyrus, I'm blocked by the flames.
He is also stuck at what I can only call a video game obstacle because I for the life of me cannot imagine what this machine's purpose is. We help him across by shooting time-sensitive but very generous switches. We learn that we can kick the green air tanks on the back of guards in case the massive arrow hadn't given it away. Guards in stealth games are usually vulnerable from behind. To be fair, who isn't? But there's usually a lot of stabbing, choking, and neck snapping involved. As silly as these glowing green weak spots are, they do allow Jay to incapacitate guards without too much violence. And again, this might be some child's first stealth game, so this is a sensible bit of design here. Optional dialogue also lets us know that guards have orders to investigate disturbances. This will be useful for distracting them with sounds or luring them over by briefly showing yourself. There are multiple ways to get past this guard. You can distract him with a gyrodisc, or you can climb over him using the platforms that you probably already climbed up on before you knew this was a stealth encounter. Or you can just beat him up, but we'll save that for later. The next room offers a choice for you to make. You can simply slip past a rotating guard, or take a little risk to explore the back. The shape of the pipe naturally draws your attention, and the shadows indicate that this will be a great hiding spot. We're rewarded for our curiosity with some healing items in the PA-1. Guards receive the order to hold their positions.
Calling all guards, hold your positions and stay on alert. Intercept and destroy.
This serves as the explanation for why guards go back to their routine if they lose sight of you. We use the triangle card to open up a shortcut back to our last bonfire and continue our adventure. Here, I get obviously spotted on purpose because this is an easy game for children and I would never get spotted like this. And I only do it to show off a cool little gizmo the guards use. Since they're very bulky, they will often send a surveillance module to places they can't reach themselves. The lasers are easier to avoid the further away you are, so you might have to find a new hiding place under pressure. It's a neat mechanic that does its job well, but I've never had a problem getting out of the way. Guards will also just assume that the lasers fried you and go back to whatever they were doing. On to the actual challenge at hand. Here we'll have to move alongside a crate on a conveyor belt to avoid detection. It's not particularly difficult, even the crate stopping occasionally shouldn't be enough to throw you off too much. For demonstration purposes, I decided to fight this guard head on. Attacking blindly will have them blocking and countering your attacks. The only way to defeat them in a fair fight is to dodge to the side and then attack them before your shield is back up. Dodging backwards doesn't give you enough distance and you will still get hit. The fact that these guys are still relatively easy to defeat in a one-on-one battle does rob the game of a lot of its tension, so I generally try to fight as few of them as possible. Playing non-lethally is definitely recommended. We also find one of the trickier animals to photograph. As a kid, it took me forever to figure this one out. The crumbs on the Hylian furniture are a decent enough hint, though. We climb up some boxes and blindly guess to shoot a grate. Luckily, this opens it and gives us another shortcut back to the MDisk reader. I love shortcuts. Since this isn't the way forward, it's okay for the way to access it to be a little more obscure. You don't miss any collectibles or story elements by missing this path. Back in the closet, we climb up a different set of boxes and reach the neutrophils vat. This is the moment where it becomes pretty obvious that the neutrophils are in fact K-bups, which ties into my the bank is run by the bad guys conspiracy theory. The bank / the alpha sections give you units for materia crystals. You spend the units on K-bups and suddenly the bad guys have your crystals and your money. That's some sneaky stuff right there. Speaking of sneaky, we turn on the machine to distract the guard and stealth around him. We see more of the wooden crates we saw earlier. This time they're being filled with neutrophils. The pink snacks are being used to cover up kidnapping victims, though we'll see later that they don't do a very good job most of the time. We grab an M-disk and find Paige's shoes in a locker.
Paige's shoes. What have they done with you?
Well done, Yeet.
This arbitrarily spawns two of the silly laser bots. We can either destroy one of them and proceed, or remember the lightning barrier in the previous room to take out both and access another optional area. Here we find the Hylian Army Databank M-disk. I like that both soldier types are listed as organic resources instead of human ones. It's fittingly dehumanizing. For some reason, this disk casually mentions the weaknesses of several enemy types. It also just blatantly admits that the Alpha Section's containers are used to transport living organisms in a state of lethargic control. I'm surprised we need more evidence than this one data entry. When watching the footage of the surveillance camera, we see Paige all wrapped up and ready for shipping. There's a tiny oversight here where you can see the crate filling up with K-bups, even though the footage shows that none are currently being loaded into the crates. A more significant mistake here is that the guards say they took off his jumpsuit. An earlier character design had Paige wearing a jumpsuit, but that is not the case in the final release. Moving on, we encounter a tiny speed challenge. Pressing the button opens a door that'll slowly close over time. It doesn't add much, but it's inoffensive. What follows is a series of stealth encounters that don't offer anything new. Trying to snipe an enemy from across the room, we learned that the gyrodisc launcher does make an audible noise when fired. I didn't actually know that before, so I found it interesting. With no obvious way forward, we have to get creative. The fact that the crates are accessible at this one spot gives us enough of a clue to consider them part of the equation. It's not mind-bending, but it's very satisfying to figure out. As we shimmy along the wall, we get a good look at the average Alpha Section soldier. The right side of his face is covered in veiny green goop. It also looks like this one has lost part of his lips and possibly his eyelid on the left. It looks almost skeletal, which given the bony look of the DOMs is fairly fitting. We parkour our way through a nonsensical laser corridor and meet up with Double H.
Did you see the Alpha Sections? Look at their faces, they're no longer human. They're controlled by the DOMs. We must inform the entire population of this. Quick, send a picture to the Iris network. I'll continue looking for a way in.
We take a picture of a verdant friend and publish our findings. Time to get out of here.
I'm sure she'll be willing to help you.
I like that leaving the factory is just as much of an adventure as infiltrating it. Despite this game only having 2 major stealth dungeons, their interconnected nature ensures that you only rarely have to go through a room more than once, even on your way out. The game is starting to throw more complex stealth sections at us, larger rooms with more mobile guards. The correct path is still fairly obvious, but those brief moments of somersaulting from cover to cover are enjoyably tense. With our freshly acquired keycard, the world becomes a little more open. Back at the X-ray verification, we punch in the code to proceed. The world starts vibrating rapidly because the PC version is bad. We see a spirit eater and one of the alpha sections.
Continue looking for the second intruder. The pig has been captured. They're bringing him in now. Your Excellency. The problem has been taken care of. My best men have found and neutralized all of the intruders. Everything's under control, Your Excellency. I'll take care of this minor detail myself.
Close hatches. Cast off moorings. Okay. Lift off. Destination: the slaughterhouse.
It's very telling that this alpha refers to this DOMS as Your Excellency. While at first it may have seemed that the alpha sections and DOMs were to some degree equal partners, this one line and the fact that the Spirit Eater executes the alpha on the spot shows that the DOMs are very much in control. And hammers do not make sword noises. Since pearls are made of divolite, they have the ability to assemble complex structures, in case you ever wondered how this nonsense is possible. What follows is one of the most speedrunnable bosses in all of video games. While the fight is extremely easy, I do like that you can only win it by working with Double H. It's a great way to convey that he'll be your new page from now on. I also very much enjoy that you have to dodge after attacking to avoid getting stomped as the thing falls to the ground. It makes the fight a little more involved. The boss doesn't have any invincibility, so you can just knock it down over and over again. I think it's interesting that the pearl only turns green after defeating the boss. This may be an oversight, but I like to believe that the DOM's veins are actually a life form in and of themselves. It doesn't feel the need to use the pearl's full power while it's protected by the robo-boss, but ultimately tries to tap into the pearl's energy to keep itself alive. It is too late in making that decision, however, and withers and dies. It is also possible, though, that I'm just giving the devs too much credit.
Paige. They've taken Paige!
If it wasn't for you, it would have been me they took for a free ride in one of their luxury coffins. Turn ticket not included.
I'll find you, Paige, no matter what. Hang in there.
Terrorist strike attempted by the Iris network at the municipal Neutrophils factory. Thanks to the Alpha sections, the production line was fortunately saved, and a part of the gang of hoodlums were imprisoned.
You hear that, guys? We're hoodlums! This time, we actually, for reals, are on our way out. I like Double H calling out the Reaper's Pearl. It's a nice way to remind the player to pick it up later, and it makes sense for him to do so since he wasn't there for the fight against the Reaper. I would have liked it, however, had he also pointed out the Reaper's corpse, since the two of them have a bit of history together. We also find the arms of the robot here. It's a little thing, but it's nice that the devs put in that little bit of extra effort. Now that Jade has learned that Paige has been keeping secrets from her, she's wondering what else she might not know about him.
Is Paige a member of the Iris network?
Could be. Don't ask me. All I know is how much he meant to me. Looks like you're finally getting your head back together again. You back with us?
Getting there. But my head is killing me. The machine gave my brain a good scrubbing.
There's a very deliberate shot of the great Paige opened for us earlier. This connects Jade to the player nicely, as this makes us think of him and how he's been there to help us, the same way he's been there for Jade her entire life. We break through a couple of steel bars and regret not having picked up the second fuse I mentioned earlier. We hop into the hovercraft to pick up a pearl and give the Reaper a piece of our mind. We dock, stop recording, pick up the fuse off camera because, man, we're being professional today. We place the fuse to lift the lockdown.
It works. Double H.
Miss Jade, oh, this thing is eating up my insides. I can't hold out much longer. The boys from Iris, they might be able to do something to help me. It's my only hope. Get me back to Iris. I'm begging you. I can't breathe, Miss Jade. I'm connecting to my auxiliary circuits, but they won't hold out very long.
Dramatic music kicks in, the timer starts. Whatever it is DOMs do to their victims, it corrupts their bodies and spreads over time.
Powering me.
Like, dude, you're the one who told me to hurry. Letting the timer run out just kicks us back to the latest loading zone with plenty of time to make it to the end. I would have really liked a Metroid Prime 3 corruption-style game over screen here, but given the generous timer, most players will never see this happen, so it's understandable that devs didn't want to invest too many resources into it. In an alternate timeline, we make it back to Iris with plenty of time to spare. As May is readying the antidote, something in Jade's mind speaks to her.
Nino! May! Quick! Double H is with me! He needs help!
Double H reporting for duty. The Alpha sections have taken possession of the... They shoes at your service.
Hub!
May, we have to give him our last dose of antidote.
Hub! Hub, can you hear me? Say something.
His pulse is dropping rapidly. Prepare the injection. May, quick! We're losing him.
I'm here, Hub. You're gonna be all right. Hang on, it's almost over.
Thanks to you, Jade, Hub is safe.
He's a fighter. He'll be okay. He'll be back on his feet in a couple of weeks.
Her friend in exchange for her soul. And there's that Shawnee again, and I'm sorry. If you still haven't figured out that the Doms call Jade Shawnee, and that something inside of her actually is called Shawnee, then I just spoiled it for you so we can move on. This moment on its own doesn't mean much, but it has huge implications later on. This is the first vision that Jade actually understands. And it's not just creepy noises or visions of the future, it's an offer. An offer that Jade seemingly can choose to accept at any time. And if it wasn't for Iris somehow having one single dose of antidote that's never explained, Jade may have actually taken the voice up on it. Alternatively, just a theory, it is also very possible that the antidote was not enough to save Double H, and Jade actually did agree to the exchange. It's not entirely clear.
Friends, I believe Jade has just shown us an amazing demonstration of courage.
Nice work, kid.
Good. Now come have a look. That's where the victims are taken. That's where they've taken your uncle, Jade.
The old slaughterhouses.
Your next report.
Jade, your last report from the factory had a large impact on the population. The Hylians have spontaneously shown their support.
Optional dialogue reveals that the chief of the Hillis section has not been heard from in a few days, and no one knows his identity. Coincidence? No, of course not. What do you think this is, real life? We learned that the only way into the old slaughterhouses is through one of the racetracks. It's one of those open secrets everyone tells you about it. This is a nice way of ensuring that the player doesn't have to talk to one specific NPC to get the information they need, but this is the Beyond Good and Evil equivalent of guards taking arrows to the knee. I find it incredible that we live in a time where there's memes that only old people use. It's kind of depressing.